So I have one of my favorite stories, and I think one of the craziest climbing stories that I've ever been involved in that I'm going to share in today's episode, where we climbed, myself, Stas, and JJ. I can never pronounce his name. It's like Jedrez, I think. I just call him JJ. We went to climb Sea of Vapors, which if you don't know what that is, well, you're going to find out in this episode, but it's an insane climb in Banff. It's arguably one of the most difficult ice climbs in the world. When it was first originally climbed, I think they did rate it as one of the most difficult in the world. I think it was first climbed in like the 80s or 90s, which to me is absolutely bananas that it was climbed back then. But it was an all-out adventure, like a full 16 to 20 hour day. And it was one of the craziest stories and one of the craziest climbs I've ever been involved in. What is up, guys? For those of you who are new to the channel, my name is Philip Setter. I'm an avid rock climber, ice climber, and backcountry skier from Canada. I'm also an insurance broker who specializes in insuring those individuals. If you're interested in that, I'll put a link in the description, but let's just get right into the episode. Okay, so before I tell you guys about this story of Sea of Vapors, which is an insane story. First, I want to say that this is not going to be like the regular new content. So I released the first episode of this kind of like story time content that I'm doing, and I got a bunch of messages and comments from people saying like, "Oh, I like the old style a little bit better." So I mean, some people really liked it, but some people like the old style. This isn't replacing the other videos. This is just something to fill in the gaps while I'm busy working. I haven't been able to get out that much this season. I think it's January right now. It's January 21st when I'm recording this. The last time I got out climbing was in November, so I just don't have any new content for you guys. But I have a ton of stories, and I'm stuck in my office here, so I thought maybe this would be a good format to kind of make some different style videos. But listen, this is not, we're not replacing the other videos. Do not stress. We will still have the other videos. Do not stress. Don't worry about that. I'll get some more GoPro footage. Don't worry. I am going climbing tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to make some videos. It would be, I don't know if you guys want to watch it. It's going to be sloppy. I haven't climbed in like 2 months. I got fat over the holiday season. It's not going to be good. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll make some. I don't know. We'll see. Anyways, that's not today's episode. Let's talk about Sea of Vapors, because this was by far the craziest climbing that I think I've ever done. Now, this was in, let me think, I want to say like 2019. So this was before I had a YouTube channel. This was before I owned a GoPro. So there's no footage of this. There's nothing of it on the channel. You can't look it up. I don't know what footage I'm going to overlay this video with. It's probably just going to be some general climbing footage. So you're not going to be able to see the actual climb of this because, I don't have any. So for those who don't know, Sea of Vapors is essentially this like mythical climb that comes in on what's known as the Trophy Headwall in Banff. So that's on, I want to say Mount Rundle. Yeah, it's on Mount Rundle. And it's on this like just side of this cliff. And there's a whole bunch of climbs up there. There's like Terminator, Replicator, I think is another one, Sea of Vapors, and they're all just like full on gnarly, like WI6, WI6 plus, M7, M8, like just really hard climbing. And you gotta like hike. I want to say it's like 4 or 5 hours. I think it took us to get up there. So it's quite a like full on journey to get up there. Excuse me. So anyways, it's a crazy place. You're on the side of this mountain. There's avalanches like coming around you. There's spin drifts. Like it's full on like alpine climbing with really technical, very, very technical ice. So anyways, we had seen, so we were just going throughout the season. I think it was February that we went. Yeah. So we had been climbing the whole season. Stas went back, at the time he lived on the island. I was in Calgary. Excuse me. And JJ lives in Seattle. And so we were just monitoring the Facebook page. It had not come in. It's like a very weird climb that only comes in, every few years. And if it does, it only stays for a little bit. And so we were just monitoring the Facebook page, and all of a sudden we see this post come up, and it was like, oh, Sea of Vapors looks like it's in. And you just see this streak of ice on this mountain. And I'm going to see, I'll put a picture up. I'll put a picture up for you guys just so you can see what it is. I want to say it's got to be like 200 meters. And the rating of this, by the way, if you look in the guidebook, it's rated anywhere from WI5 to WI7. because it's random. It could come in really easy. Like the last time it came in, everyone went up there and climbed it. It was in like pretty easy condition. I think WI5, maybe WI5 plus. But the first ascensionists, when they climbed it, I can't remember the exact date, something in the 80s maybe. It was like full on thin conditions. They were putting in like nuts and rock gear to climb it because it was so thin you couldn't get any pro in. So this thing is like, it's like legendary, right? It's like a mythical status. It's a pretty wild climb. So we saw a picture come up on the Facebook page and it was like, oh, like it looks like it's in. And I immediately commented, I tagged Stas and I was like, we have to go do this right now. So sure enough, he got in his van. JJ got in his van, or his truck, I should say, as well, from Seattle. He drove from Seattle down to Banff. Stas drove from the island in Victoria to Banff, and then I met them. I drove out from Calgary. So I left Calgary, I think maybe 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that, 1 o'clock in the morning. Met them at the parking lot around like 2:30. And that was the plan, was to try and get out of there by 2:30. We had a little bit of faffing around, took a little bit longer to get out. I think we left the car maybe around 4 a.m. So at this point, I've been up since I didn't really sleep at all. Like, let's be honest. Like, you can't sleep like when you're this excited before any of this. So anyway, so we get going, and I brought snowshoes in my Jeep, but then JJ didn't have snowshoes, and I felt like Stas always brings snowshoes, and now I do too. Like, if you're anywhere in the Rockies, always bring snowshoes. I always have them in my Jeep. It's like, you'll never be sad that you brought snowshoes. You know what I mean? Like, you're never going to be like, oh, these are so annoying on my feet. Like, if you find the snow is like fine, it's good quality, then you can just stash them somewhere. But you'll never be like upset that you brought snowshoes. But you will be incredibly upset if you don't bring them, and then you're like post-holing your way up for like 6 hours. So JJ didn't have snowshoes. Stas always has snowshoes. I brought them in the Jeep, but then I saw that JJ didn't have them. And I thought, wow, you know what? If he's going to suffer, I'm going to suffer with him. So we left the car like 4 a.m., 4:30 or something like that. We're going. You got to walk along a road for fucking ever. This road is like miles long. If anyone's done this road, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's like the Professor Falls Road. You basically walk to where the golf course is, the Banff golf course. And it's just like, I don't know, I think it's like 5 or 6 kilometers, but that feels like forever when you're just walking in the dark. So you get there, and then we start post-holing up. So as we're going up, we literally are like watching these little mini avalanches come off the side of the mountain, and it's like windy. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So we're looking at that, and we're like, okay, this is pretty full on. It's like maybe 8 o'clock in the morning at that point. And we're kind of like, wow, let's keep going up. Right. We're well out of the way of the path. So, we'll just kind of skirt around it, and we'll see what we see. And, if we feel like we want to stop, we can always stop. So we keep going. We post hole. I think it takes us like 5 or 6 hours to post hole up this side of the mountain. We finally get to the point where now it's like kind of like the Avi terrain is like pretty full on. So we set up just like a little rope system. So like one guy went out and then like attached the rope, just so if anyone went down an avalanche, would be able to arrest them with a rope and pull them back up, or at least hold them up. And so, yeah, we did that. And then finally geared up, got everything. I want to say it was like maybe 10 o'clock in the morning by time, we were gearing up and getting ready to climb this thing. And now we see it for the first time. Of course, like everything looks like, relatively easy from the ground. You're looking at it and you're like, oh yeah, it doesn't look that bad. So I'm looking at this thing like, yeah, it doesn't look terrible, but let's go take a peek at it. So anyway, so we climb up basically to get to Sea of Vapors. So you get to the base of this other climb called Postscriptum, which is like, I don't know, 40 meters WI6. Which in the grand scheme of things is pretty easy. Like, that's the easiest part of the entire climb is the 40 meters of WI6. And so, Stas goes out, and I feel so bad for him. Oh my God, I feel so bad for him. So we had 2 single 80-meter ropes. So they were, I want to say, like, they were pretty big too. They were like 9.8 or something like that. Like these were not light ropes. Like they were heavy. We had 2 of them. Which was bananas, which is wild to think about now. So, and 80 meters as well, 80 meters, because we were worried about the fact that the ice quality was so poor that like we couldn't get a good belay until past 80 meters. So anyways, Stas goes off to climb this first pitch. Now, this is where I fucked up, and this is a word of warning to everybody, okay? Everybody. At the time, this was 2019, I want to say. So this was like, what, 3 years ago now? Yeah, 4 years ago. Oh my God, 4 years ago now. Wow, that's a long time. Maybe it was 2019, 2020, somewhere in there. And I was still trying to figure out my systems, my layering systems, what I was going to wear for, parkas, what I was going to wear for all this other stuff. And I brought, because I was trying out these new things. I said, oh, this is going to be my minus 30 puffy, and this is my minus 20 puffy, and this is my minus 10 puffy. No. We don't do any of that anymore. We always just bring the minus 30 puffy if we're in doubt, right? If we have any concerns about the route, if we think we're going to be there for a long time, if we don't know how the route goes, we always just bring the grade 7 Patagonia parka, because that thing's like bomb proof. Like I can stay outside. I don't know about forever, but I can stay outside for a long time in that. But at the time, I didn't bring that because I was trying these like stupid layering systems. I'm like, oh, well, it's minus 10. I didn't take into consideration a few things. Number one, that it was going to be minus 10, but also it was going to be blowing wind. Also, there's going to be a shitload of spin drift. And we're literally on the side of a mountain. We're not in the trees. We're not like at this calm place. We're literally on the side of this mountain. And it's just like blowing snow and wind. And I have a picture, actually. I do. I'm going to put it up on the screen for you guys of the general mood of the day. So my belay parka, when I was zipping it up, the zipper broke on it. And so it's just flapping around in the wind. Like there's no protection for that. I brought like light gloves, light pants. Like I was just an idiot, like barely anything. I had like this base layer on, this thin mid layer, and this parka, which was blowing around in the wind because the zipper broke. So anyways, what a nightmare. Stas goes off to start this first pitch. Now, for those of you who don't know Stas Bezkin, like I would argue he's one of the world's best ice climbers, like in the world. Like I've climbed with him a ton, and I like some of the things that he's put up and some of the lines that I followed for him. I'm just like shaking my head, like, how do you have the mental fortitude to climb these? And it's not like he's climbing them and being like, wow, that was like fucking wild. He's climbing it and he's like, oh yeah, that was great pitch. Very fun, very good. That's my style of climbing. Like he's doing it very calmly. He's a very methodical, very calm climber. Nothing really gets to him. He doesn't panic. He's super calm. He spends a lot of time strengthening his mind. And so like he's pretty rock solid on pitches, and he's fast too. Like he's a incredibly fast climber. Like he has endless endurance. He trains a shitload. And so when he climbs, he's just like, there's no, between the physical and the mental capacity that he has, there's very little like trepidation in his climbing, right? Like if it's WI4 or WI5 or WI6 or WI6 plus or M7 or M8, it doesn't matter, right? It's just like one move in front of the other, very methodical, very efficient, and very fast. So we're at this belay, and I'm thinking like, okay, this pitch is going to take, maybe an hour or something like that, maybe 45 minutes, right? Like, I'm not too worried. Like when we did Whiteman Falls, he did the entire thing, the full 80 meters. I Simon climbed a bit, and he did that in like roughly 40 minutes or something like that, which Whiteman Falls is like solid WI6. So, he's incredibly fast climber. So anyways, I'm thinking that this thing is going to take him like an hour to climb the first pitch. Okay. No, he gets to the top of Postscriptum, which is the 40 meters of WI6. And then you have to traverse along this tiny rock slab. And I think it goes at like M7. And he's there for like an hour and a half an hour and a half, and we're just looking up, and he's like, there's nothing here. And he's shaking his head. He keeps shaking his head. He's like, there's nothing here. But he just like continues. And then he traverses on to Sea of Vapors over from Postscriptum. So you have to, again, that M7 traverse, gets on to Postscriptum, and it's just like dead vertical, like 2 to 3 inches of shitty, like snicey Veriglass, like nightmare. like an absolute nightmare. It's like, it's terrifying. So anyways, long story short for this pitch, it took him 4 hours to climb this first pitch. And you guys need to understand how technically skilled Stas is, right? Like this, I've never seen anything in my entire life take Stas this long. And like he's climbed like delicate, WI6 plus X pillars, and it doesn't take him this long, right? So like this is like full on terrain. So anyways, 4 hours later, I'm like destroyed at this point. I'm freezing cold. I've been shivering for like the last 3.5 hours because my puffy's just torn open and I'm trying to strap it together with my backpack. But I'm frozen to death, and I did not think it was going to take him 4 hours. So I start up. So now it's like 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we left at like 10. So like we did not think it was going to take this long at all, right? We just thought, it'd be down by, whenever. So we start up. JJ goes first. He's going up. I go up second. I'm going up. We're kind of like tiered, like he's, maybe 10 meters, 20 meters in front of me. And I'm just like, I'm going up Postscriptum. I'm like, oh my God, this is just dead vertical WI6. I'm like, sweet. I get to this rock section. It's a nightmare. Is like total. I can't even imagine leading it, because then you get onto the ice, and the ice is like, again, it's a fucking nightmare. I'm climbing up this, and I'm like, I cannot. Not only can I not imagine leading it, but you're also leading it, and your last piece of protection. He didn't have another piece of protection from the top of Postscriptum. His next piece was like 40 meters up. And it wasn't because he didn't want to put any protection in. There was nothing there. Like, there was nothing. It was just this like snicey, like 2 to 3 inches. And I'm climbing up this thing, and like tools are just ripping out. Like they're just like I put one in, and it just like, I basically just have to like grab it. Like it just start like going up and down until I catch like a mixture of like ice and rock that's somewhat sufficient. And I'm kicking in to the ice. There's nothing there. I'm just kicking rock. Like parts of the climb are falling off as I'm climbing this thing. I'm like, what the fuck is this? This sucks. So then I get up to the belay. Finally, like 80 meters up from where we were at the very bottom. He managed to find like some like somewhat decent ice. It was not good. By like, I think we had like maybe like 1 blue or 2 yellows or a bunch of yellows or something like that. Like I don't even think I wanted to look at the anchor. I think I just wanted to like, and I was so fucked at this point. My hands were like destroyed from just being like frozen cold. Like I couldn't feel my hands. I couldn't manipulate anything. And I didn't know it at the time, but I actually had gotten frostbite on like 6 fingers. I'll put another picture up here for you guys about that. So anyways, I get to this belay and I'm just destroyed. So it's like, okay, give the gear, get on the belay. I can't even do anything. I can't even function as a human being at this point. And so at that point, I want to say it was like maybe like 5 o'clock ish. It's blowing snow and wind. Now it's like minus 15. He had a plus like the minus 15 base, right? Like that's not with wind chill. It's like minus 20, minus 22 or something like that. Anyway, so Stas sets off again to finish this last pitch up, which again is like another full, 70 meters or something like that. It's another full pitch. He heads off, and then the sun's going down, and then it gets dark. And so JJ didn't think that it would take us that long to climb this. He thought like, yeah, we would go up and we would finish it and we'd come down and we'd be done. So he didn't bring his bag with anything extra. He didn't bring his headlamp or anything like that. So luckily, I brought my bag with like a few extra essentials, and I had a headlamp in there, but I couldn't put it on because my hands were destroyed. And so I'm like, hey, JJ, you gotta. I'm like, you gotta get this headlamp on my head. Don't drop it or we're fucked. Don't drop it. And so he gets it on my helmet. We get it on. By this point, it's pitch black now. We take out all the screws and we start climbing, and it's like a circus act. So basically, I climb up like a few moves, and then I like shine down my headlamp to shine it for JJ so he can see, and then he goes up a few moves, and then I keep going and I go up a few moves, and then I look down at him, and I remember there's one part where it was just like dead steep, like WI6, really steep ice, and I'm like, JJ, hurry the fuck up. I'm just hanging on. I'm like, I gotta get past this steep part right now. Oh my God, what a nightmare. So anyways, we get to the top. And what a wild climb. Like, I don't know. People talk about like grades of climbs, WI5, WI6, WI7. It's kind of hard. It's kind of subjective to say what the difficulty was. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to say like whether or not this was a WI7. I will say this was the most unprotectable, most difficult climb, ice-wise, pure ice, that I had ever encountered in my entire climbing career. So if it's not WI7, I don't ever want to climb WI7. I don't tell you guys about the types of fun at the end here. But anyways, we get to the top of this. Stas, he got an anchor and he'd got the V thread kind of built out there. And like Stas, like he's rock solid. Stas is rock solid. He never asks anything. Like he's always got everything on the go. He's like, you know what I mean? You get to the top of a climb, he's got the anchor built, he's got the V thread built, he's got everything built, he's ready to rock and roll. He's pretty like game on all the time, right? It doesn't ask really much of anything. He might ask you to carry something, but he really likes to, take control of the situation and manage all the different variables just so it's, up to him. But this time, and I felt so bad, I get to the top and he's like, Philippe, can you go down first and like set the rappels and like the anchors? And I'm like, no, dude, I can't. I'm like, I don't even know if I'm going to make it off this climb tonight. Honestly, maybe just leave me here. And I felt so bad. The one time he asked me to do so, I can't do anything. My hands are just like, I can't feel anything with my hands. I'd been climbing in my puffy, and then a few times JJ had caught it. So I have like fluff, like the fluff of the puffy just flying all over the place, and it's like barely together. And it's just a nightmare. It's pitch black out, blowing wind and snow. So he's like, all right, no problem. Poor Stas. Stas, if you listen, I'm so sorry, buddy. Anyways, so he goes down. So like we're very concerned about how the anchors are going to go and like the ice, right? So, because we have to rappel down to a certain point where the ice is still good and we can still build a V thread, right? Because if we go further, we're not going to be able to build any type of V thread because the ice was so thin. But we also want to make sure that wherever we build our V thread, it's going to be long enough to get down to the top of postscriptum. So thank God we had 80-meter ropes because we're trying to juggle this. Like, okay, well, is it going to make it? Is it going to be long enough? We don't know. So Stas goes down, and then I think it felt like he only went down like maybe 30 or 40 meters, which is maybe as far as, he could have went. He said, okay, this is where we're going to go. And so he gets there, builds a thread, gets an anchor set up, and then we come down as well. So now we're at the second rappel station, which is not a rappel station. It's just, it screws in the ice and a V thread. So at that point, now we have to get from there to the top of postscriptum. That is the next spot where there's any good ice. And if we can't make it to there, there's like nowhere down there. That's the only spot that we can make any type of good anchor to rappel off of, or V-thread or anything. So like we have to make it down to that. So again, okay, so we get that. Stas goes down first. So it feels like it takes him a long time. And we're just like, it's just me and JJ huddled on this little ice screw. It's like, I don't know, 11 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night at that point. We're just huddled on these little ice screws, blowing wind. I can't do anything with my hands. I can barely manipulate them. And then, okay, so finally the rope goes loose, and then JJ goes, he doesn't have a headlamp, so he's just rappelling down into the darkness. He goes down, and I'm just sitting there like, what am I doing with my life? It's just like, it's a nightmare out there. Just these like two little headlamps on the side of this cliff. And we actually found out there were some other people on another mountain on the other side, and they had seen our headlamps, and they just thought like, oh my God, what are these people doing? So anyways, the rope goes loose. I go on rappel. I take out all the screws, and I just look at this like little thread had this little V thread, this little piece of tat that I'm attached to. And I'm just like, oh my God, what am I doing? So I start rappelling down, and I start going down and down and down. And then I get to this point, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, where the fuck are they? Like, where the fuck are they? I'm looking, I'm like, I feel like I'm going so far. So I keep going down and down and down. I keep going down, and I didn't have a prusik on my, on the rope. I was just holding it, right? And then next thing I know, I like look way over to the left, and I see there they are, like way over to the left. And I'm like, oh my God, how did they get over there? There was like probably 15 meters over or something like that. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So then I start doing this like running back and forth on the wall, trying to get over to them. And I'm just thinking of this like tiny piece of tat that's hanging up there. That is like the only thing that's keeping me alive and not dying. And so anyways, I'm like running back and forth. Finally, I make it over to them. I swing over to them. I get on, we pull the ropes down. I think there was a few nuts there and a few pitons that we wrapped off of. We wrapped down, made it down there. I had been freezing, like I'd been standing still and freezing for so long, right? Because most of the time you're just belaying and waiting, that I was like, the only thing that I was looking forward to is like the fact that I could just like get my backpack, make it like, because I wanted to work. I wanted to like sweat and get some like heat back into my body. So as soon as we went over, we passed it like avalanche risk area. We got all the equipment packed up, and then like I loaded up all my, all the gear, and I was like, I'm off. I started just like basically running down the mountain to try and get some warmth back in my body and heat myself back up. So yeah, pretty. So yeah, just finish up the story here. Made it back down. What a nightmare to walk back on that road. I think we made it back to the car around 12:30 at night. Stas and JJ, they just had kind of their vehicles there with a bed in their vehicles. So I think they just passed out. I still had to drive back to Calgary. So I like got in the car. I had my gloves on. I cranked the heat. I drove for like an hour, maybe 45 minutes to an hour. I still wasn't warm. Like I was still freezing. I got to like Tim Hortons in Kananaskis. I went inside, and I was basically like, give me every donut that you have available, and a hot chocolate and a coffee and a whole bunch of things. And that's when I took off my gloves, and I saw my hands were just like, all the tips were black at this point. And I was like, oh, that's probably not good. So it ended up, I ended up getting frostbite, and I'll put another picture up there. I think I will earlier on this video right now. But so they basically were fine after, I think maybe 6 weeks or something like that. And I was worried that I would have residual effects after a few seasons, but they're actually totally fine. I don't have any residual effects, which is really good. But anyways, yeah, Sea of Vapors. No one else climbed it that year for probably good reasons. One of the craziest climbing adventures that I've been on. It was pretty full on. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you guys in the next one.